Is the Mercedes Mone Tour of Japan coming to an end? It's rumored that her contract may be up. She may have an extension. Is there somewhere else on the horizon that we may see Miss Monet? We're going to talk about it today and everything else within the black wrestling sphere. Stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Of course, joined by my trios team, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, and the Professor, that is Gerard Bonner. As Mex said at the top of the show, Mercedes Mone, her days are numbered. The contract, at least, is numbered. It is rumored that her contract is up at the end of this month, to be fair, as it stands. But she has an imminent title defense of her IWGP Women's Championship coming up on the 23rd, which is this Sunday, against Mayu Iwatani. Now, I'm going to start this way. Mex, we talked about this match coming up last week, and you mentioned you feel as though she could be losing this championship. Now that I know about this contract situation, I'm like, it now makes a bit of sense. But there is the possibility of this contract being extended. Uncle Dave Meltzer has put it out there that there's this contract talks going on. He doesn't know when the next date is. Apparently, there's another match on the cards for Monet within New Japan Pro Wrestling. Not sure when, but Mex, let's talk about the match specifically. As I said, you mentioned that you feel it's though they're leading up to Iwatani winning this match. Do you still feel that's a possibility, or is there this possibility that Mercedes retains and then carries on? And how long does it, if it does?
I still think it's very likely that she could drop the title here. I'm basing it on not so much the contract stuff, but the build up for this match seems more intense than the rest. There was obviously a lot of effort between her taking the belt from Kyrie. Mm-hmm. We had the title match a couple of weeks ago on the Sakura Genesis show, which was a fantastic title defense. But again, it was more like people just called her out. She was happy to do the match. She went for it. This seems a lot of Mercedes putting over the next person sort of thing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more in the way of she's driving the wedge in between them. There's a lot more in the way of she's instigating the fight. And typically, when you keep instigating, you keep poking the bear's gonna bite. And Iwatani, she's a great talent. If it isn't her, then it's been rumored that she will get an extension, another match extension. Even if she does drop the title to Iwatani, there's rumors she'll have another match extension, and there's still other people in Stardom that she could put over and things of that nature. But Mayu is she's one of many. It's like you name everyone in Stardom and everyone thinks you're putting over the whole roster, but that's how good they are there. Like, she's one of many top girls. I think she was in the top, might have been 30 or so within the PWI women of last year, when obviously we all spoke about how much they wanted to include Stardom on that list. She was there, it's someone definitely that she's a working project. Like I say, Mercedes is clearly doing a lot to make it seem like this is someone that I could lose to, sort of thing. She's a threat somewhat, so it'll be interesting to see if they actually pull the plug on Sunday, and then obviously the whole world will go, oh, where's she going next? She's dropped the title,
right?
So, yeah.
Right. Gerard, what do you think? Do you think it is important that if this contract is extended, that Monet still holds that IWGP Women's Championship?
I have a lot of feelings about this. Like, there's a part of me that's trying to figure out if this is the end of her run. Was a 3-month run in New Japan worth it? Like, did she really accomplish all that she could have accomplished in this New Japan space? From where I sit, I feel like it's just getting started. Like, I feel like she had this, people were interested. Okay, is she going to show up at Wrestle Kingdom or not? She shows up at Wrestle Kingdom. Great. Then in February, like as soon as Wrestle Kingdom happens, she proves, hey, I can sell out in a moment's notice. Sells out the San Jose venue. They have a great pay-per-view in February. She wins a title. She defends a title at Sakura Genesis. To drop it now would feel like she hasn't accomplished what she could have accomplished there. I kind of feel like part of the allure to having her in that roster is to really reach out to people internationally and get eyes on this product, not just for 2 or 3 months. I feel like at least a year this needs to happen, because I think she needs to be able to prove to people that I'm bigger than the WWE machine, that I can have these matches with this incredible talent. And no, they don't work every single week, so you have time between matches to do other things. But to lose the title and to wrap up your contract now, I don't see the wisdom in that from a wrestling perspective. Now, for her, if it's let me land the bag and then go on and do whatever else I want to do, then we can't really argue with that if that's what she wants to do. But if the point of it was from a New Japan perspective, we're going to get more eyes on the product. From her perspective, I want to show that I can last outside of WWE. And if Japan was always the dream, who lives the dream for 3 months when you're in control of the story? So this is where I'm concerned. Now, there's a part of me that hopes that we're being, trolled at this point, and that there's really, another 9 months to this contract, because I also think to myself, was New Japan silly in signing her for only 3 months and just saying, hey, we'll do 6 dates and wiping out the 6 dates in the first, 4 months of the year? If that's the case, then that's bad business on their part. Again, we're speculating at this point. But what I can say for sure is if this weekend is the end of her run in New Japan, I don't know that history will be kind to a 3-month tour of Japan.
Right. But
I've got 2 points I just want to throw in at this point, right? One thing is a fact that we know that was said. She doesn't have like a contract. She's on an appearance deal. Right. So of course that can be extended at any point, and they're already talking about post this weekend. Stardom have a show next month, I think. Queen of Stardom, I think it is.
Massive show for them.
Yeah, there's no way she's not going to be on that show.
Right.
So that's probably a shoe-in. So that's already some type of extension on, what they're calling the end of her contract now. Mercedes is a troll. She's done this before. She knows how to kind of manipulate the internet. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I haven't even checked to see if this was today or yesterday or so. She posted on Instagram on her story that she's going to move to Japan. Like the caption was something like, "Oh, how can I not move to Japan?" or something like that. Like, "Oh, I'm definitely gonna move here." She said something along those lines. Okay. So again, this could be her trolling. It could be facts of the matter. Like, yeah, maybe she just doesn't want to kind of commit to any company. She's happy with these appearance deals. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's that whole control of what she does. But again, I pose the question: though, is it if she loses, does it matter if she has the IWGP Women's Championship, but then continues? So can she still have matches? Can she still sell out? Can she still bring eyes to the product without holding that belt?
So here's my concern with this. There was the whole Sasha Banks curse in WWE where she couldn't have a successful title run. right? She'd win the title and then lose it. So if she loses this title here, that means she will have only had one successful title defense as the IWGP Women's Champion.
True.
That doesn't work well for her legend or her legacy. So I think in all of the things that she's fighting, that's got to be one of the things that's somewhere in the back of her head as well. To come in with what I like to call the Hulk Hogan treatment, where you come in and your first match is a world title match, you know, you then don't get to go back into mediocrity. You don't get to do that. You literally came into these people's houses and you said, I'm better than everything you have. And then you pulled a house, you sold out a show, you won the championship. You don't just get to now. Here's what I'm actually thinking. As Mex was talking, I thought to myself, maybe this contract that she's on was a trial run where both sides get to see, how do we like each other? You know, like if I don't like this situation, I got 6 dates and I'm out and I'm good. But if I like it, it leads to something else. Now, if that's the case and it does lead to something else, I think it's a great move. I think personally, from a wrestling standpoint, she needs to be in New Japan for at least a year. She needs to be able to show the world, I can carry an entire women's division being the woman. There's no Charlotte Flair to get in the way. There's no Becky Lynch to steal the thunder. There's no Bayley to compete to. It's all Mercedes. And for her to be able to do it with women that are considered top 10 around the world, I think that's going to add to her legacy. And if she only does a year there, but does an incredible year, we're all sitting back going, it was worth it.
Right.
But to do all that she did to leave the WWE, you know, if she loses that title now, I do think it impacts how people look at her. If she loses the title next year, not so much, you know, but I think she needs a lengthy and successful run. Given the match she had at Genesis, which I thought was incredible, and it made me go, Mercedes Mone is not Sasha Banks. We need to see more of that. And hopefully she can do that as the champion.
And that was the... Go on,
I was just going to say, I think stepping away from even Monet, we have to remember that this title she's holding is brand new.
It is.
They want to establish this championship. And,
yes,
you know, they gave it to who the biggest star was before Monet walked in the door in Kyrie, because of her exploits in the West. And of course, she's a terrific wrestler anyway. And they basically just, Monet came in, they just pinched the title off Kyrie. Kyrie had only had one defense as well at the time. They don't want to be hot shotting this title and then try to sell it to us as it being important. So yeah, they want to really kind of have the champion to have a good solid run with this. And then I think if, you know, back to your question, I think if they do take the title off her at this point, and maybe she does stick around, like Gerard is saying, for maybe another couple months, even, you know, 3 to 6 months, she's still the biggest thing they have. So it's only going to hinder the title anyway. It's going to be like, you know, when we've seen the old comparison of the WWE champion and the World Heavyweight champion, that the World Heavyweight Championship doesn't really mean nothing when the WWE title's around. Or even when AEW, Britt Baker loses the Women's Championship, but she's still the biggest deal on the show. So you don't really want to do that to the rest of the card and everyone else and the title as well. So yeah, maybe if she is going to be around long term, she stays with the belt for now.
My thinking is this, as you guys are talking, it's like, all these scenarios just don't work. The best scenario is to keep it on a New Japan, do whatever it is they've got to do to keep her around for at least, as Gerard says, the rest of the year. 1, to establish the championship. 2, it's better for Mercedes, for her legacy, especially coming off of the back of that great match that she had, the triple threat as well. Even the match when she won against Kyrie as well. There's so many things that need to kind of carry on for it to be best for both parties, and to use the term best for business, because it just doesn't really work any other way. Like if she was in New Japan for a year, then loses, but still sticks around, we've still got that whole thing going on. We're not too fussed that she's going to have great matches with other people and nothing's on the line, because she's have already established herself as the best and all that kind of stuff. Put someone over to make them then the star with the belt. They can do what they're doing. The belt isn't then diminished. She continues doing what she's doing as well, and then does the chase as well, because we love a good chase at the same time. Do you think in any way that her holding this championship and her having this deal with New Japan hinders or stops anything else that she wants to do, at least in the wrestling scene, like with other companies?
I think that, the biggest thing that's going to happen this year that she can be involved in is All In.
Yep.
And, traditionally, I say traditionally, it's only happened once before, but traditionally, All In is a celebration of indie wrestling. It's everything else but WWE. Hey, everyone, come and get involved. So she's not going to want to miss that party. Approximately 60 to 80,000 people packed in, wrestling fans. She has the opportunity to involve herself in something like this, even if she is still with New Japan. And New Japan obviously in bed with AEW anyway, so it shouldn't be that hard to work out something. That is somewhere that she 100% needs to be. Whether it's a title match against Jamie Hayter, maybe it's just an exhibition match against Britt Baker. Like both matches, absolutely massive. Like she wouldn't want to miss that.
Yeah.
Do you think we've got All In, as you said? Do you think it's important for her to stick around with New Japan to then be involved in the Forbidden Door?
I think that it has more power for her to be a part of New Japan for Forbidden Door than for her to be a part of AEW. I think, again, New Japan is the company she can carry on her back right now. I think if she gets in AEW, there's going to be a lot of battle in terms of who the top person is. And one of the images I thought of was, think of the image of her at the Comic-Cons with the IWGP Women's title. We've never seen it before, right? What she did at WrestleCon. And so now think about what happens when she goes to the Disney premieres. What happened, you know what I mean? Like that I think has a lot of weight with New Japan Pro Wrestling, that they won't get that kind of access with Iwatani or, with Shuri or with any of the other folks. And so I think that weighs in for them as well. So I think, she doesn't have to be part of AEW to do this. She needs to be the foreperson for New Japan, so that we all can go look at the whole world that we have, not just look at these two companies. So yeah, I think she's got to stick around New Japan.
I think everything that she's done with the belt, where she's turned up in this place, turned up in that space, the conferences, the Comic-Cons, the premieres and stuff like that, it allows you to then make complete sense. I mean, I made sense of it anyway, but those that are naysayers, it allows you to make complete sense of the fact that we're hearing she's getting more money per appearance than a Chris Jericho.
Sure.
Because there was no way New Japan are getting those kind of eyes on their product, especially with women's wrestling and in general. Chris Jericho wasn't turned up to no premieres with any titles. Not even a Kenny Omega, the Bucks, none of them were doing that. And as much as they were able to put bombs on seats and maybe to a point, not necessarily sell out shows, but get a lot of people there, what Mercedes has done in these 3 months is unheard of. So it makes complete sense. And I can't see how or why New Japan will allow that to slip through their fingers. I think it would be absolutely crazy if they have to double the money that they're giving her per appearance. They're gonna have to think about doing that in order to keep this momentum going. And I think, going back to what I was saying earlier as well, in terms of Mercedes herself, I think it is massively important, especially in these early days of her new chapter, to keep this thing going as well. It doesn't necessarily hinder, the other things she wants to do, the other things she's working on and stuff like that. She's got this freedom that is just unheard of, and yet still making the impact, still making the money, still doing, you know, I mean, all these things. It would just be crazy for that to just end. But again, this is all speculation. We don't know exactly what's happening. We don't know exactly what. I mean, there may be other things in line for her that are probably even more ludicrous, possibly. Who knows? But it's going to be very interesting to see how this one works out. Sunday is going to be interesting. There are so many other dates we can think about. I think Meltzer mentioned the possibility. I think the show is Dominion. That's what's coming up soon.
Yeah.
That is a possibility in terms of these talks. So I think it's massively important that she retains this championship. But yet in a way to obviously then put over Iwatani, but at the same time, or at least make her look strong, should I say. But then still retain this championship and keep it going. But I'm just not sure how this one's going, because Mex is making me think, especially with these contract talks now, making me think there's a possibility she might lose this championship, but then what happens from there? That's
yeah.
Go on, Charles.
I was gonna say she's really, like, if you're at a bargaining table right now, you want to have all the things happening that Mercedes has happening. Right. Like, it is the best of all possible worlds for her. You know, in the 3 months, they have very tangible numbers they can look at to see improvement from a streaming perspective for NJPW World, how she sold out, you know, in San Jose, all of the things that are happening for Stardom, socials, you know, they can look at all of those things. And so now when it's time to negotiate, what can she ask for that she wouldn't get? Because here's the thing, right? Because if she doesn't get it, you take that star power somewhere else. Like, so I'm, as we are talking it through, I'm feeling confident that, hey, New Japan did what they had to do to get her. They see the success. They see how people are paying attention to Stardom in ways that not even Pro Wrestling Illustrated could have imagined. You know what I mean? That's why they spent all this money to get her, whatever amount of money they spent. Makes sense to do the deal because they're all benefiting from it. You know, everybody's winning.
Max, what are you going to say?
No, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Keep the title on her. It would be a real big shame. Like I think Gerard said in the beginning, like, you know, this isn't what we all signed up for. We know kind of she's not living over there in Japan. It's literally when she is booked over there, she's probably just going over there, doing her work and coming back. Like, it will be a very big shame if like this was the end, or next month after the Stardom event, that's the end. Like, there is a lot on the table. Like I said, even with All In and being that crossover person, oh my God, she's come from here. Or even with Forbidden Door, forget All In, like all of that. Like, I just feel like, where else are you gonna go? Nothing, nowhere else is really popping right like that right now. Of course, she's got endeavors outside of wrestling altogether, but you know, she's managing to do that now with her current deal, and she's you know, putting on a great run right now. I just think it's too good to just cut short now. Like, we're literally just getting started, and there's still a lot of women, even from that Stardom roster, that are probably looking at her, waiting for their chance, waiting for their rub. You see what I mean? I want to get in the ring with Mercedes. So yeah, let's keep the good times rolling.
Yeah, man, for sure. We're talking about the good times, but something else we want to talk about that doesn't quite sit great with us at the moment. There's a busy man in AEW, and his name is Swerve Strickland. So a few weeks ago, we've never actually talked about it on this show yet. Swerve has kind of, you know, he had this whole mogul affiliates going on, bringing in, you know, different people from the hip hop world and all the rest of it, making appearances on AEW. Then all of a sudden, Swerve decides to drop this merger on us out of nowhere with the Embassy, Prince Nana, Brian Cage, and the Gates of Agony. where we're going with this because I'm just like, right, what was the purpose of this? Does it work? Will it work? Can it work? Gerard, what are your thoughts on this merger of the Mogul affiliates and the embassy? Do they even have a name? Like, is it the embassy affiliates? Is it the Mogul embassy? Like,
Mogul Embassy, I think they were called the
it?
other day. I think that's what they were called. Yeah.
Gerard, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
In this age of acquisitions, where people are deciding, you know what, let's buy WWE and have WWE and UFC under the same parent company. That makes sense. This makes no sense. And it won't make any dollars either. This is a very bad idea. And here's why. The embassy is primarily associated with Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Swerve is primarily associated with AEW. So what are we doing here? Are we blurring the lines? And the Swerve thing, like, honestly, he's not been the same since he and Keith Lee have broken up. It's just not been, oh boy, there was a whole reference I had. I'm not going to use it because I'm going to get in big trouble. So I won't do that. I will just say there are moments where there are entities that are together. And, you know, whenever there's a music group or whatever, somebody always wonders, what'll happen if so-and-so goes solo? What'll happen if, and sometimes they break up and you realize the solo careers for all of the people involved weren't nearly as good as when the group was together. Right. I think what we're literally seeing with Swerve right now is he's grasping at straws and he can't find the supporting players. You know, the guys that he had with the Mogul affiliates were all newbies for the most part. And I guess they couldn't cut the mustard because they're nowhere to be found. So now you decide to connect with, of all people, like, I don't even understand the story of how it got together. Like, it just, I mean, you literally show up on Rampage and say, I have a blockbuster announcement. Here we go with that again, right? Like, nobody can seem to have it. Maybe, well, you know what? Maybe their announcements do amount to Blockbuster, which no longer exists here in the States. So I just, there it is. Blockbuster is gone. Maybe you need to have a Netflix announcement. Maybe you need a Hulu announcement, but you don't need a Blockbuster announcement because every time we get one, it falls apart.
Right.
So this is the case for you, Swerve. I think Swerve needs to go back to the drawing board. Maybe he needs to have one good battle with Keith Lee, and then y'all kiss and make up, and y'all go back to being Swerve in our glory, winning tag team titles, and doing things that we all care about. Because this Mogul Embassy, it's
a thing for me where Swerve is not the Bobby Brown of this new edition.
Hello.
It's just not working for me at all.
It's his prerogative, and we don't like it. Yeah. Yeah.
Woo! And every little step he's taken just isn't working.
Not working.
Are we singing here or what?
Because there's somebody bigger than you and I. That's the problem. That's the problem, Bobby. It's terrible.
Here's the thing, though. Like, even when Keith Lee and Swerve first broke up, or just as they were about to, should I say, we kind of saw this kind of like more darker type of Swerve, which was working for everyone. We were like, all right, this is cool. When they break up, Swerve's gonna, go on this trajectory of doing great stuff. Obviously, as we've seen, it hasn't worked like that. AEW seems to have this whole thing, though, of merging groups and tag teams together. It worked for a week, and then it doesn't make any sense. It's like the whole thing with, I think it is Matt Hardy and
in the Firm and
Andrade's group, the
AFA,
right? And it just doesn't. And I don't know why they keep doing it. We know we saw the match between Swerve and Darby Allin. For those who have any kind of idea of Swerve's indie past, that whole thing was kind of a bit of had more of a nostalgic feel than it did kind of leading to something in AEW, because they're both coming from the same indie company called Defy, which is based in the state of Washington.
Yes.
Which was great, which was nice for that. But then obviously then we saw Keith Lee versus Jericho. Swerve gets involved. Swerve is being pulled here, there, and everywhere with no real direction. Mex, do you think there's a way to kind of pull it back for us to kind of get this Swerve that we thought we were getting just as Lee and Swerve were breaking up?
Let me say, speak up, Steve. Steve says, such a shame as Swerve has got so much talent. He was so over when the heel turn first started. Poor booking has cooled his momentum down massively. And that's really what it is. I will split this into positives and negatives. Positives is that AEW are clearly determined to give Swerve something to do. They can clearly see the talent. They clearly want to use him. And that's where the positive ends. Because anything else just hasn't been it. We saw the split of the tag team. We saw the Mogul affiliates, Trench and Parker Bordeaux. Like Gerard said, they clearly can't cut it. They're gone. No announcement of why this merger is happening. For me, I've even been saying that the character of Swerve, like you're using the word mogul, which gives me rich and all of that kind of stuff. Yet you're dressing like a Chicago drill rapper with a ski mask over your head. Like, yeah, it's the jewels and it's the look of rap and stuff, but like there's a disconnect. And then you're now chilling with these big body guys for what? Like they clearly want to give him a heater. They clearly want to give him a big man. Keith Lee is right there. Even with this new look of Keith Lee, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, I think it even works better.
Yes,
like a just a haggard, angry, older looking guy. Like have him in your corner. Like they don't know what they want to do with Swerve, yet they know he's got something we can see. And like you said, he had the match with Darby. By the end of the night, he was costing Keith Lee and Keith Lee's match with Jericho. Again, Tony going back to feuds which he dropped. Whatever. But it is what it is. Like, just go back to basics. If you're gonna go now of Swerve and Keith Lee, like let Keith Lee see sense and let him be the big man. Get rid of mogul affiliates because again, we don't need ROH and AEW crossing paths. Like, let's just keep things very, very simple. And I feel like even Keith Lee, you know, we just know he's not the same as he previously was. His match with Jericho was pretty good, to be fair. But he's just not the same. This role as the heater, as the big man that they want Swerve to have for whatever reason will work. Like, just do that. And I'm sure that will get Swerve back to some type of normality. I saw someone say online, it's almost like they've been trying to recreate Hit Row without making it look like Hit Row. And they're just failing. And I'm thinking, like, I mean, that might be true, but it's just like they're so off. They're so far off it right now with what they've been trying to do with Swerve. But like I said, to take the positives, they're using him. They're trying to make, you know, it's the analogy. What is it? Put in square pegs in circle holes or whatever. Like, they're trying something.
It's just not fitting.
It's just not fitting right now.
We know that within AEW, there's a little bit more, creative control in terms of the wrestlers themselves and all the rest of it. We also know that Swerve is also a rapper outside of wrestling. He's done a bit of music and blah, blah, blah. Do you think this is him trying to hold on to the whole rap thing and Hit Row? Not necessarily that specifically, but just that whole association with rap. Is that what's going on as well?
I don't know. If he is, the problem is you need a supporting cast, and he hasn't found that yet. You know, that's the thing with Hit Row is you had legit rappers who were also wrestlers. That makes going into a music space very, very easy, and it translates super easy. This might be a scenario where, you know, we'll have to leave the music side outside of wrestling if the two can't merge successfully. You know, the most successful thing he did musically was have Rick Ross at his side. Other than that, it's just fallen flat. Nobody believed, you know, that the affiliates were affiliates. right? Like we weren't seeing that or believing that. So
Mm.
yeah, this might be a case where, like Mex says, you have to go back to basics and just be the incredible wrestler, because that's the sad part, is that's being lost in all of this. He's an insane wrestler. It's being lost. You know, maybe he can find a way to reconnect, like I said, with Keith Lee. I mean, there's a whole storyline here. Keith Lee sees the light because Keith Lee tried it his way. It didn't work. He got beat by Jericho. People are treating him mean because of his new look. And now he can say, you know what? I tried it my way. It didn't work. Swerve, let's try it your way. And then he becomes the big time angry man that he could be. And they just run over everybody.
Right.
Like it makes sense. But you know,
this is where we are. So speaking of this angry man, Gerard, you put up something earlier in the week, very interesting, about this new appearance of Keith Lee when he returned about a couple of weeks ago. He's come back all grey, kept it natural, no just for men anymore. It is just for Keith Lee. But we've seen the reactions of some people, you know, kind of maybe not necessarily connecting or agreeing or you know, seeing this grey-haired man as a believable wrestler. Talk to us a bit more about that and what you thought and what you've seen, and why do you think this is happening?
Yeah, so, you know, Keith Lee makes his comeback, and I think it shocked the world that he came back fully gray. Now, for those who don't kind of know how that happens, you know, if you've been around anybody who's ever colored their hair, you know, you'll know when Keith Lee was doing that. There were parts that he didn't always get sometimes, so, you know, you could kind of tell that was the case. Or, of course, you know, he would cut the whole beard off and you wouldn't even know. And really the conversation has to deal with ageism and how we treat people with gray hair. Unfortunately, in the wrestling business, because it is so image driven, people aren't allowed to be natural, right? And this doesn't just apply to men, it applies to women, it applies to everybody. You know, whatever enhancements people have to do, whatever, you know, things people have to do to appear younger, people tend to do it so that it seems to give them relevance or opportunity. For instance, when Goldberg came back with his little gray pouch. But when WWE would do the flyers for him, they always made it dark. Like, it's those kinds of things. There definitely seems to be a thing against people who have gray hair as though they are older. And because they're older, they don't even have, you know, they don't have the kind of appeal, or so it's believed. Now, some of the people who were commenting, you know, on the video that I did said, hey, if people can still go, it's not a real issue. But the problem is so many of us have been programmed to see people in a certain way that if you start showing gray, it shows that you're aging. So because people want to present folks as looking the same, Undertaker's another great example, colored his hair a lot. You know, and it wasn't until, you know, really he kind of got out of that role that he started letting us see that it wasn't always Black Sting. Like, same thing, he'll color his patch, but if you catch him on a non-wrestling day, you might catch the gray. It is a real thing in wrestling, and I think people have been programmed without even knowing that if we see a person and they don't look the way that we remember them, we now think age. And as we think age, we think lack of ability. And so then, like, again, who was it? Vince McMahon. That's what I'm talking about. Vince McMahon, his new look right now, everybody's like, are you kidding me, guy? Like, really? You know, he didn't have a mustache for years, and now he has a mustache, and it's black, dyes his hair black, and then sits in an interview and talks about why he won't be Mr. McMahon anymore because he's 77 years old. Okay, sir. So do you really want us to believe that at 77, your roots are black and your thin mustache grew in black, right? So if Vince McMahon feels the crunch of ageism to say, I'm not going to show you my gray, meanwhile, the CEO he was sitting with, Ari Emanuel, has got a head full of gray hair.
Right.
and is younger
Right.
than Vince McMahon.
Yep.
You know, so there's a real thing from McMahon all the way down where people don't have the level of comfort to be able to open up and say, hey, you know, here I am. In that video, there was a picture I posted of Bobby Fish, who I remember at one time in NXT, they let him rock with a gray patch for a bit. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is interesting. And then that went away very fast. But then there was a picture floating around of him just sitting in his car completely gray, and nobody knew who he was.
Wow.
You know, so it's a thing. And I don't know that the wrestling community has been conditioned to accept the aging that will naturally happen with people. And so that's kind of the cause for concern. And we're seeing it in the response to Keith Lee.
For sure, for sure. So so is it more specific to do with the appearance of gray hair or someone's age? Because you mentioned in the same video as well that we've got the likes of Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar, who are, you know, in their 40s. You know, Roman Reigns isn't the youngest guy on the planet either.
Right.
But those three are, you know, possibly the biggest names in WWE right now. But no one's mentioning anything about their age in any negative way in the slightest. Mex, do you think it's a lot more to do with the gray hair or the abilities? Because as you even mentioned a few minutes ago, that Keith Lee kind of isn't the same as he was a year ago. Do you think that has anything to do with Keith Lee specifically?
I think the look for Keith Lee, like, it suits him, and it can definitely work with a character shift.
Right.
Like, it's obviously quite intentional because, you know, like Gerard said, he was dying it before, and we knew he was dying it. It just depends on what he wants to do, especially with this. I guess the character is this caped character that he has, and whatever that's going to be, and once fleshed out. But for him, I think his weaknesses are probably more down to the health concerns we know he had, as opposed to, you know, age or anything like that. These are guys that are, you know, they're doing this kind of stuff frequently. He has more of a hybrid style, and he's a bigger man, so it 100% will become harder with age, you know, to do that. I don't know if you guys saw on social media, Will Ospreay. He said that he's recently been cleared from a shoulder injury, but he can see it's not the same. He's had to change his moveset and all of that kind of stuff. And obviously, Will Ospreay is still a very young man. So, you know, we know there is wear and tear in this business. On top of that, but at the end of the day, though, I think it's one of these elements again of show business. These guys are on TV. You have to look the part and all of that kind of stuff. How appealing would it be for someone that's channel surfing to come across AEW and see the main event of this big black grade off man wrestling Chris Jericho? You see what I mean? Like, is this something I want to stick around and watch? Oh, like, what are these two granddads doing in the ring against each other? You see what I mean? So it may not be something that, especially on WWE, it's not tolerated, it's not accepted. We saw when Ciampa came up, or even on 2.0 before he came up, dyed the whole beard and everything like that. Obviously, Bobby Fish example has been used already. Like, they're very cautious of this. The likes of Dom Mysterio still wearing a vest. Kevin Owens wears a vest. Like, it's just one of these things. So, I don't know. I don't like harping on this kind of stuff, because I think if you make your appearance work in line with the character, then I'm cool with it. And like I said, I feel like with Keith Lee, he can tell this story of, I've tried things my way. Look at me, I'm stressed. Like, nothing's working for me. Like, now I'm just gonna kind of go on this you know, whatever it is, him and Swerve. But I just think it could be an easy way to discriminate someone, which is obviously not what we want. But I think at the same time, it's just one of these things in show business. Like, you just have to look your best all the time, even on a bad day.
For sure. We know there's already the ramblings. It hasn't been made official just yet, but we know that there's this strong possibility of Swerve versus Keith Lee at Double or Nothing. But I guess we can talk about that a little bit closer to the time when we see whatever develops from now till then. But yeah, there's a possibility of that happening also. Speaking of new developments, things that are happening, we turn our attentions back to the WWE. We know the imminent draft is coming back after being absent for a year and a half. We mentioned it on the show last week, very quickly, of the possibility of NXT stars also being involved. We now know, or have a strong indication, should I say, that they will be involved, or a few of them will be involved in terms of being called up and stuff like that. We don't yet know if some people will be sent back. I don't want to put it like that, but it's the reality of the show, I guess. But what do we think, or what are we expecting? What can we expect from this draft? Do we have any predictions or any preferables in terms of black stars in the WWE and where they can be moved to? Gerard, do you have any thought about this one at all?
Especially after watching Raw last night, the obvious one is the breakup of the Street Profits. Here's the thing I will say about this. This is likely the cleanest way to do it, where you don't have to have anybody turn on each other. They have a template for this with what they did with the New Day, where you can actually still be the New Day or the Street Profits. We're just operating in two different lands. And if we ever get a chance to come back together, it now becomes a special attraction. We went through all of these spaces where we saw Montez and Dawkins each have separate singles matches on multiple occasions. I think they were all test runs. And I think Montez Ford goes to SmackDown. Angelo Dawkins stays on Raw. I think that's a given. I think that's a given. I think we see Caden Carter make her way. I think probably to Raw. Her and Katana Chance on Raw, because I think they need to add depth and experience to the SmackDown roster. The Raw roster has been almost heavy with veterans and stars, so they need to add some new blood there. So that's why I think Caden Carter and Katana Chance as a tag team will make their way there. In terms of others, I think Bianca Belair stays on Raw. She is the statesman. She is the flagship. She is that person. So I think she, particularly with Rhea on SmackDown, I don't think we're going to see any championship swaps. We don't need to do that. So that's not a thing. I wonder if this is the opportunity to be able to bring I just saw his face and his name just left me, back to Raw, Apollo Crews. I feel like he has, his job in NXT was never to win the NXT championship. It was to kind of hone his own skills and help others while he was there. Once this thing with him and Dabba-Kato finish, there's nothing left for him to do. I mean, he did not beat Mello for the NXT North American Championship. He did not beat Braun for the, NXT Championship. There's nothing for him to do other than to make his way back up to Raw. And so that could be the opportunity to get that done. And I've been saying this, and I really hope it happens, since it doesn't look like we're going to get the Hurt Business, then let Cedric Alexander have a run in NXT.
Yep.
Golly, the fire that could happen. It would be incredible. He'd get a chance to hang out with his wife more, but then he'd get to have some matches that really showcase who he is, because there's some great talent there that he could do some amazing work with.
Mex, any thoughts of the possible draft of the Black Stars in the WWE?
I think Gerard's covered a lot of it. Just to add, I think Cedric could, be someone you see right in that North American scene, maybe beat Wesley and carry on the legacy of the African American Championship down in NXT. I think Bobby Lashley could be someone we see move to SmackDown, because you want to shake up that mid card / you know, in upper mid card area as well, because Austin Theory just doesn't seem like he has much to do with anyone now on Raw. Yeah, I'll bring up Caden and Cortana to the main roster. Just one correction on what Gerard said. Obviously, like we said, I agree. Bianca shouldn't move. We should not see any swapping of titles. So just on what Gerard said, I'll move Montez on Raw and move Dawkins the other way.
Okay.
Because they tend to keep, you know, partners together anyway.
Together. Right.
Yeah, Apollo Crews could definitely be a shout to come up. Almost is another figure. They probably keep him on Raw. But yeah, they do need to give at least the likes of Bianca. I think she is struggling right now. Just because of there's nothing like Asuka, she's beaten, cool. Asuka's disappeared into nothing. She's gonna have this match with Io Sky, which is gonna be great, but it's just a match. Like there's like no investment really. Whoever wins Money in the Bank in a couple months' time, that could be interesting for her. If she's still got the title till then. The funny part is Rhea Ripley, since winning the title, is not doing much of anything either. But I'm pretty safe to say we're probably a lot more invested in Rhea Ripley than what Bianca Belair is doing on TV.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm sure the draft has got them in a bit of a bind at the moment anyway. You know, we didn't see Street Profits doing anything on TV yesterday apart from promoting the fact there's going to be a draft.
Right.
So they're probably waiting for these next couple of weeks to go past, and then we can get into the swing of things properly, probably mid-May, end of May.
Yeah, for sure. I'm agreeing with everything that you guys are saying as well, and I think the other tag team I feel needs to be broken up in this draft. As much as they have been, you know, it's been nice for the both of them. Is Braun Strowman and Ricochet. I think it's a chance for them to put the rocket on Ricochet. Whether he moves to, I think staying on SmackDown would be great. Move Braun to Raw. And I think it would be great for Ricochet to have a purposeful singles run. And I think that would be interesting. To see Bobby Lashley move to SmackDown. Just give me Bobby Lashley Gunter. That would be what I would want to see and expect if Bobby moves to SmackDown, or I would want Bobby to move to SmackDown for that specifically. And I think it's time as well, as one of you guys said. You know, you've got this whole thing with Austin Theory, and Austin Theory is beating everyone that's kind of in and around that US title scene, and I think that needs a shake up. So moving Bobby over for the Intercontinental, maybe having someone else kind of come for Austin Theory would be good and nice to see. This whole thing with Bianca, I read something just earlier today about Vince Russo saying that, you know, right now they're just in this creative freeze with Bianca. She beat Dakota Kai yesterday, and it did nothing for no one. You know what I mean? It did nothing for no one. Didn't put over Dakota at all, really. She had a decent match, but it didn't really put no one over. Didn't add to no story. Didn't do anything for Io Sky's chase for Bianca's title either. So there definitely needs to be a shake-up in the Raw roster as well for the women. Yeah, Montez stays where he is. Angelo Dawkins goes the other way. I think that would be great for Angelo Dawkins as well, because there will be a few people over there that, you know, he hasn't really, you know, had matches with and stuff like that, especially obviously on a singles level. So, you know, the whole debate then becomes which one of those two is going to be successful. Are both of them going to be successful? You know, and when I say successful, not necessarily win titles, not necessarily go on some mad run and have a big push, but at the same time, does Angelo Dawkins go over there to SmackDown? If he does, and then just become another guy, whereas we believe Montez has a better chance of climbing a little bit.
I think what is traditionally been maybe on WWE's mind, and I think definitely as fans, Raw is obviously the 3-hour show, and that is the flagship. That is like the entertainment show. Whereas SmackDown in recent years, especially, has been the wrestling show. As
Right.
much as WWE do wrestling, but yeah, it's been the wrestling show. So I think that split even makes sense. Obviously, it's not to say Montez can't wrestle; he's a great wrestler, but his stock is in his entertainment value.
Of course.
Whereas Angelo Dawkins, especially in the last year or so, we've seen his stock has risen in his wrestling value.
Of course.
Like, the boy can go. He's dropped the pounds. He's moving faster. He's you know, that spot he had with, was it Braun at WrestleMania? Yeah, like,
whoa,
the boy's cooking. Like, let him get over on SmackDown, just being a very good wrestler.
Right.
And then we can, you know, flesh out his character as they see fit. You know, get more invested in him. They can give him more to do and all that kind of stuff. Same way you said put Ricochet on SmackDown. It's because Ricochet is fantastic in the ring.
Right.
You know, the character still, for Ricochet, unfortunately, still got a lot to be desired of, but he is just a complete technician in the ring when it comes to high flying. So if they kind of have that kind of split, you mentioned again, Bobby Lashley Gunther is a possible matchup we ain't seen. So that's where you can really add value to some of these guys, that it's like they won't always be given the opportunity on Raw, which is mad to think on a 3-hour show. You can't find time for them, but like, this is where they can get over and do some good work. So yeah.
Away from the Black Stars, it just kind of come to my head. Obviously, we saw on Raw, we mentioned it's more of an entertainment show. Obviously, we had this whole kind of show-long story of the Bloodline and the Judgment Day. Obviously, we know Rhea Ripley's a SmackDown Women's Champion. Do they split up the Judgment Day, or do the whole of the Judgment Day go to SmackDown?
I think they keep them together. I think the Judgment Day have been a big success, bigger than they probably thought they were going to be.
For sure.
Yeah, I personally, if I'm doing the draft, I'm keeping them together. And they have there's a very nice dynamic right now in the Judgment Day of, like, no one's really in charge. Like, okay, so we know Dom's not in charge, but like the rest of them, it's a cool mutual respect between the rest of them, and it's like they kind of take turns, like depending on the show and what the main story is for each person. Finn might be the guy that's forward for this particular show. Yesterday it was Priest that was the one that was kind of making the deals and stepping forward a bit. We've seen in the past have that position, so I think that's a really nice dynamic. Although what I was going to say is that if they move them to SmackDown, I would love to see Rhea be the one kind of step forward and be the de facto leader of these guys. And, you know, they're almost her entourage and protecting her, making sure she keeps the title. What a way to make a woman's title feel special for once. Like all the men doing all the shenanigans and making sure Rhea stays as champion. I don't think we see much of that.
We've never seen that before.
So, yeah, I think that'll be a really smart thing to do. And then they think they're keeping Roman on Fox on SmackDown. So maybe they send the Solo the other way, because they are invested in Solo, and keep the Usos on SmackDown as well. But yeah, we'll see.
It's been interesting actually, because Solo's had most of his matches on Raw as well. So
for a SmackDown superstar.
Yeah, exactly. And
means nothing.
And in the main event as well. So that was the other thing I was going to ask as well, is because, you know, we've seen that this whole brand split hasn't really been a brand split over the last maybe 6 months, maybe more. Will this draft then mean that they have to be a lot more focused on it being a brand split? What do you think, Gerard?
I think they absolutely have to. For it to mean anything, they have to enforce it. And in my world, they also need 2 authority figures, one for Raw and one for SmackDown. Because Adam Pearce doing both of them, he's really doing nothing, you know. And so you need somebody who's going to enforce, we are Raw. Put some pride behind being in that brand. You know, Triple H was great for that with NXT. In terms of, we are NXT, like, this is our brand, this is us. They need authority figures that are going to do that. Adam Pearce is not that guy. So Find another role for him. Let him maybe be over those guys. I don't know, but he's not the guy. They need two people to do that, and they've got to really enforce it so that if somebody does show up on the other brand, we're like, oh, wow, they're not supposed to be here because they haven't been here in a year. You know what I mean? But if you just come right back the next week, that's foolishness. It's not going to mean anything.
Yeah, of course.
Quickly, I'll just add. I'm sorry, I can't remember where I saw this to give credit, but the best idea I think I've seen recently in terms of this splitting this championships, because that's 100% got to happen if we are doing this brand split, right? Is that on the night of the draft, Roman is basically drafted twice. His name comes out for Raw, his name comes out for SmackDown, and Roman has to, obviously he's confused and everything, Roman has to defend the Universal title on SmackDown, he has to defend the WWE Championship on Raw. And that can be the way that slowly breaks him down and someone beats him for either one of those. I think some other people have said like he'll move to one of them, like SmackDown, say, and they'll make like a undisputed WWE title, like one championship for him on that show, and then they can just crown a brand new champion, bring out a new belt for Raw. But yeah, that's got to be something.
I think those two scenarios can work. The first one, of course, being a little bit more entertaining with Roman having to defend on both shows in that 1 week. That would actually be very interesting. But yeah, that would be great. But on that note, guys, we have come to the end of our show. You have been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleMania UK YouTube channel. Of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the notifications when this guy Mex puts out all his reactions to everything WWE and AEW and anything else he feels the need to react to as well. Guys, you can also follow Mex on WrestleMania.uk on Instagram and WrestleMania UK on Twitter. Follow this guy, Gerard Bonner, the professor, on Bonafide on all things, and the Faction Show as well, his own show, WWT Live. He's doing the commentary for Southern Honor and the Nightmare Factory as well. You can find that here, there, and everywhere on YouTube. I think he's got stuff on Fight TV. Battle Slam's coming up soon as well. He's got that going
this Sunday. Yeah.
Yep. There we go. And you can follow me, Dazzle, the lesser working of the three, on Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram, BWA Dazzle on Twitter. Of course, check us out again next week, and we will see you again next time. Peace.
Yeah, guys.